Hi everyone, I'd like to, in this video, walk you through the requirements for Assessment 3. So we will also catch up again on this in the last webinar scheduled for later. I think it's in November. So this is the module outline. I'm just going to scroll down to Assessment 3. Okay, so let me enlarge this 125. Hopefully that will be okay for your screens. So it's application-based essays. There are more than one for this, and due session 10. I think it's the 14th of November. So this counts 40% of your year mark. And as you know, you've been split into these small groups. And my advice, as always, is to start as soon as possible with the assessment. So if you haven't started already, start preparing for it. So I just want to maybe just go back to the sessions first. The budgets. So the session session 5 already, you can do whatever in assessment 3 relates to session 5. And then managing HRM related information you can already do as well. And the next element that you can then also include shortly would be project management and so on. Then we have the ethics pieces and culture, session 8 and session 9. Okay, so you can already start. So assessment 3. So yeah. Okay, so question 1 is about decision making and managing HRM related information, and this counts for 25 marks. And you ask to describe the concept HR architecture and explain the relationship between an organization's HR architecture and HRIS. So in the week, let me just go out of this for a moment. And in week 6, session 6, on MySACAP, there's an HR architecture voice thread which you will find important for answering a question around HR architecture. And then I've also got a practice case study for you for one of the other questions, which I'll come to in a moment when I look at the module outline again. So go back to the module outline. So HR architecture, define an HRIS and then describe the nature, importance and value of HRIS. You've got 250 words, should be more than enough for you. And note, when we refer to HRIS, Human Resources Information System, it is not a manual system, and I'm sure you are speaking to unnecessarily that you obviously may know that already. We're just making the note because in the past we've had perhaps a misunderstanding around whether it is, fully computerized, so to speak. Then, so that's question 1A and B. Then question 1C is about that you've requested information that is more HRM specific, and one of your colleagues emailed you the following information, which is this case study. Read the following case study info and answer the 3 questions that follow. 600 words, 13 marks. So I just want to scroll down. I think there might be some confusion around answer the 3 questions. So there's the case study, and then answer the following. So I think you really just need to work through these. I'll show you the model answer shortly. So, in anticipation of a planned strategy meeting in a week's time, you are required to write a report to explain and interpret the HRM-related measurements noted in the case study that you have just read. So that is, shall we say, the first heading for you. And then the second heading would be based on your work in question 131, and that may also confuse you. 131 refers to the Roman numeral I there. So it is actually question 1C1 or I, Roman numeral. Okay, so just so that you don't get confused with that. So based on your question in that part, your answer rather, your work there, write the second part to your report, and in this part of your report, you should outline 5 HRM-related initiatives that can support the achievement of the company called Wannabe, their business goal, which is to reach profitability. And then the third element, which above is called a question, is not actually a question, it's just a note that, with case studies, you get given certain information, and sometimes you read this and you think maybe there's something missing here. That will be further clarification, and then you can make reasonable assumptions, and then you must just state those assumptions clearly in your report. So this is a notification. And then the full report, which really centers around those 2 elements, the analysis to interpret the HRM-related measurements, and then the 5 HRM-related initiatives. That's the report. You've got 600 words, and you would be okay with that if you know what you're doing and you have paid attention to each element. I've done the pre-reading exercises. There's an exercise specifically aimed at this, which I showed you a moment ago. So let me just go back there. In session 6, the practice case study, which is simulating question 3, assessment 3, question 1C, and there is a suggested discussion points to include in answer. So I'm guiding you quite explicitly as to kind of what are we looking for in that case study to also, at the same time, it's a scaffolding strategy for you to understand and for you to guide you through the answer. So you shouldn't really have a problem answering this. As a group, each of you should do the practice case study, and when you approach the assessment question, you must work as a group and give one another ideas and agree, disagree, debate. It will help you to write an excellent answer. So that's that question 1A, B, and C around decision making and managing HRM related information. And then the next question is about project management. And project management, there are two parts to that. The question 2, which is part A of project management, and then project management question 3, part B. And the first part of project management, question 2, 500 words for 25 marks. And then the third question, part B, it's an essay, approximately 1,000 words. You've got a little bit more words there. So those are the 2 project management questions. And yeah, so I will go through this sort of very briefly with you. So in Brevis and Verwaar, in 2014, a textbook on page 306, it is noted that in broad terms, the application of project management as a management philosophy greatly facilitates the deconstruction of work. So explain what is meant by deconstruction of work. What does this deconstruction allow the organization to do? So some hint around this is if you, and please don't just write what I'm saying now, rather familiarize yourself with what is in a textbook and what is project management literature. I'm just giving you a very kind of simplified understanding of deconstruction. So if you have a project to build a ship, because a ship is like building a ship is like a project manufacturing scenario. You would have a start to build that particular ship, and it could take 6 months, a year, or whatever, and you'll have an end. So you know what the complete ship will look like based on blueprints and so on, and then each element of how to build each element of the ship and to get the necessary parts and sub-manufacturing carried on trucks driven to your manufacturing site, which is would be at some close to some harbor or inner harbor workshop type thing. You would deconstruct every task needed to build a ship, and so in the end you may have even thousands of pieces of task, so to speak. That means that you deconstructed the overall work of completing this project successfully, and then you would have a project plan that this task will go before the next. These 2 tasks can be completed at the same time. Another task can only be completed once another one is completed. So kind of roughly that is what deconstruction of work means, but please do write a little bit more sophisticated answer than my sort of broad, simplified description of that. And then you also define project management. You'll have a definition in a textbook. The Project Management Institute, the PMI, if you want to do a search, will have a definition of project management as well. And then include a practical example to illustrate project management. So, for example, I just explained to you a building of a ship, which is not like a normal manufacturing line where you constantly produce the same cars all the time. A ship is a unique project, that's a unique design, and that would then be an example of a project. The projects, it could also be the implementation of a new software system in an organization, or the building of a new manufacturing plant, or and you can, your practical experience, you'll probably be able to come up with even better examples. So what is project management in an example? And then, so what are the aspects in business that the project manager needs to have control over? So a project manager is in the unique situation. If we take, let's say, you're going to be working on SAPI in a later question. So SAPI is quite a big organization, and they will have line managers responsible for specific areas. Let's say marketing, manufacturing operations, whatever the SAPI's operations are, accounting, and so on and so forth. So each of those line managers have line authority for their performance in their departments. So now there's a project to do something in the business that maybe cuts across all sorts of departments. And you appoint a project manager that doesn't really have line management authority over the people that may be assigned to that project. Yes, those people will have some reporting line to the project manager, but they are allocated from various departments to work on this project, and they still have their original line manager as a manager. And this is again another simplified example. So one of the things a project manager needs to be able to do is to manage without necessarily direct line manager responsibility. And within that context for project manager, the business, when they create projects, should communicate, and it should be standard practice that a project manager will need control over certain things in the business to make sure that she or he can guide and manage the project to successful completion. So yeah, just have a look at the project management material, reading, reflect on it, and what are those aspects in a business that the project manager needs to have control over to make it a success. Also, in a similar vein, what are the constraints that the project manager must work within, and how do they impact the work delivery of the project manager? So there are various constraints, some of them would be immediate constraint would be the design of the outcome of the project. What is it that they need to achieve? And then there would be, let's say, a time constraint, the people that I deliver the project to specify that this must be completed by a certain time or in a certain time. There will be a budget constraint. They've got a certain budget, and you can think of other constraints around projects. There are various constraints that are illustrated in the material for the project management session week. And then question 2E, how should a project manager deal with the different values held as important by different stakeholders, and explain using some examples. So the project manager is responsible for a particular project, and the project will impact various people. It may be that it will have an impact on the operations or manufacturing side. There will be a finance implication, there will be a marketing implication, there could be an HR implication, and so on. So each of those divisional or departmental managers that will be affected by this project, which this project manager will now be in charge of, will have a certain point of departure when they look at the project. So just simplified again, the financial director, manager, whoever the stakeholder is there, look at things from a financial perspective and how can we minimize cost or maximize our expenditure, the productivity of our expenditure. The marketing department will have a outlook of how will this affect my marketing job, and so on. HR would look at it from a how will it impact people perspective. So that just gives you an example of the different values held as important by different stakeholders, and the textbook is explicit about that. So just how would a project manager deal with that practically when she or he manages this project? Because communication and interaction with the stakeholders, the various stakeholders that are attached to the project, is one of the key tasks of a project manager, to make sure that communication and managing of those stakeholders takes place to facilitate successful completion of the project. So those are the 5 sub-questions. And then project management part B, we hope, and it's been shown in the past, that it could be a quite exciting, stimulating essay to do. And here again, you have amazing opportunity to work within your groups to really write something very spectacular. Yeah? You've got 1,000 words, and then the scenario is the HR executive, and she reports directly to the MD, asked you to lead an important HRM project. So we're trying to contextualize this also within your studies. So, but yet, although it's an HR project, this will be a project that will involve the whole organization. And I go back to E, how should a project manager deal with the different values held important by different stakeholders? So here it's an HRM project, and you're the project manager here, and how will that affect all those people, and yeah, you need to be aware of that. So this will be a project that involves the whole organization. The business head office is in Kimberley, Northern Cape, where you are based, and the business has 30 branches throughout the country. There's a total staff in the business is 332, of which 29 are head office based, and then 303 are spread across the country in a branch, so roughly 10 staff members per branch. So that's the context. So your manager asked you to prepare a comprehensive project plan and present this to her in a week's time. The manager chose you because you know how to work with the numbers, and she wants the project done by December. And now it's already the month of May. And she has a limited budget available. You are unsure what resources you will have to use other than money, and your manager did not give you much other detail to work with. Because of your project management training and HRM experience, you have a very good idea of the reasons why projects are not successful. So these reasons, some of them are listed in, or typical ones are listed in Table 1. So you're aware of these issues, these things that may sink a project, and you don't want to fail. So the Table 1 down here is where these are some of the reasons why projects fail. You can do also your own research on that. There tends to be kind of similar issues that bubble up when projects fail, but for some projects, maybe in one project 4, 5, and 8 was the issue more than, let's say, 26 and 28 on the other side here. But these are sort of generic issues that come up that we're giving you as sort of a starting point to work from. So yeah, so you don't want to fail, and you are required to now for the assessment to write an essay that addresses all the following, and kind of you would put yourself into kind of a project manager role. So review the list of why project fails, which are highlighted in that table there rather. And then for this particular project of the scenario that was painted above here, so you would review the list and then you would choose the top 6 reasons from that table that you believe are the high-risk items for your particular project. And then you will explain your top 6 risks. And using the project material presented in chapter 14 of Brevis and Verbaar as your frame of reference, explain what planning you will do for the project, what conversations you will have and with whom during planning and during the project life, and then what will you do during implementation to ensure that you mitigate the risk of any of your 6 related risks leading to your project's failure. And then again, it's a case study, so you've got the room to make assumptions where necessary, but please explain these explicitly in your answer. And then, of course, reference and cite and all that, like for the whole assessment, applies to the whole assessment. So just some guidance here. So you need to be specific about your 6 reasons and explain them very well. So this could be in one area. I can't remember now particularly what is an answer template, but you could have a piece in your answer template which your first reason is would be the you would have a heading for that. You would then introduce that very briefly as this is the reason, and then explain that shortly in a compact way. Do that for the 6 of those, and then explain what planning you will do for the project. Again, that's chapter 14 of Brevis and Verbaar. And then what conversations will you have with and whom during planning and during the project's life. So when you set up the project, which you're going to just about be doing, who do you need to talk with? And one of the most important then would be your manager, which is the which reports directly to the HR executive, and the HR executive reports to the the HR executive is your manager, and she reports directly to the MD. So your HR executive is of course your main stakeholder here, and you'll use language in what you write up as to who's the sponsor of this project, which is someone that will be key in your project. So explain your risks, and then what conversations you will have and with whom during planning and during the project's life. We were there, and then you need to be specific of what you will do during implementation to ensure that you mitigate the risk of any of your 6 selected risks. So you must deal with each of the 6 and explain how what you do will impact the project so that you manage the risks and prevent them from actually occurring. And I'm just thinking of what past students in terms of risk. Remember, a risk is something that you assess might happen in future. If there is already something that has happened, it is no longer a risk. It's actually something that happened that needs to be managed. So just be clear about the distinction between what are risks and what are issues that have already occurred, which may be related to a previous risk identified. So just wrap your head around that distinction. So that's the project management question. And then the last question is also quite an extensive one. You've got 1,000 words for that. And it's around the sessions, I think it's sessions 8 and 9, around business ethics, corporate social responsibility, corporate governance, and so on. So you would be presented here with the SAPI information here, and just a pause here. I just want to go to this page, your page on MySakeCap. So what I've done is I have downloaded the documents for you, and I've posted them here, the SAPI Annual Integrated Report for 2021. That's the latest one available, so you must please use that one. The same with the Sustainability Report 2021, and then the SAPI Code of Ethics is, it's not dated, it's in place, and maybe every now and then SAPI will update that, but this is the latest version from the website. And if you feel like it, you can use the link here to go to the particular area, so that you can, some people may find it easier to work online rather than downloading a PDF. So you've got the download options for all of those over here. So for example, if you go to the Annual Integrated Report and you click on that there, it takes you through this very creative page here, which is called the Annual Integrated Report. And from this you can do downloads, and then the headings over there, and it gives you all sorts of information over there. And then once you've worked through that, you can go to the next page, and so on. So you've got that option, but for ease of access I've downloaded it, but again you may want to work with the actual online version, which you're welcome to do. Okay, so that's the SAPI information. Where must I go now? Let me just go, confuse myself here, go back to this. So the context of the company is explained over there. You can go to the main website as well from over there. And then again, don't use the 2020 information, use the most recent, which I've got on MySakeCap for you. And then what you need to do is, using a concept discussed in Chapter 8, Business Ethics, Corporate Responsibility and Corporate Governance, of Chapter 8 of the textbook, as well as the relevant sections of King 4, pages 42 to 73 as lenses. Write an essay in which you describe and evaluate SAPI's approach to corporate governance, business ethics and corporate social responsibility as evidence from the report. So just be specific, don't oversimplify. So what we're asking is, describe and evaluate SAPI's approach to 1, corporate governance, 2, business ethics, and 3, corporate social responsibility. So there are 3 things that you need to describe there, and the evidence will be those various reports that I showed you earlier on. And then another issue, a 4th issue that you need to do, is to evaluate the extent to which you believe SAPI has succeeded in integrating ethics, social responsibility and corporate governance into their business, and then evaluate how effective you feel the published code of ethics is in practice. So this is an issue here, the code of ethics, how effective is it? Evaluate the extent to which SAPI has succeeded in integrating ethics and social responsibility in corporate governance. That's another issue. And then you've got 3 issues here which you need to describe and evaluate: the approach to corporate governance, business ethics and corporate social responsibility. So you've got to read this paragraph carefully and ensure that you cover each element properly. I'll show you the model, the template rather, for the assessment 3 answer shortly. And then please do note that you are not expected to describe each social responsibility project in detail, or to describe the adherence to each King IV principle and practices in detail. We do expect you to demonstrate your understanding of the textbook concepts in King IV by describing SAP's application and overview and linking that back to the theory in King Code. And then make sure that you accurately reference, include page numbers. Just pausing there for a moment. If you use the PDFs, I think there will be page numbers. On the web it is a bit different, so what you then need to just do there is to refer to a heading and a paragraph. So just be careful that you do have some form of a reference so that it follows the academic practice. And then chapter 8 in a textbook, the textbook is sort of not quite outdated, but in this respect it's outdated. It's 2014, and up to 2016, the King report, King III, was in place, and King IV came into existence, I think it's November 2016. So when you read the chapter, you would read specific issues in King III, and you can find those equivalent issues or related issues in the King IV report. Therefore, you just need to do a bit of a reconciliation from the chapter 8 from King III to King IV. Okay, so the advantage of that, although it gives you a little bit more maybe work to do, is that in that way you will get quite intimate with the various issues from King IV, of King IV. And I've also got, I can't remember everything that I did now, but you've got the material that I shared with you in the presentations around King IV and the related issues in weeks 8 and 9. So the grading, you can go through the module outline yourself, and there the grading rubrics around this. And okay, so I think that's all I wanted to really do here. We'll again, you'll have an opportunity in webinar 3 in November, I think the first week of November, to also explore this again. In the meantime, also, if there are uncertainties, just keep me posted, and I'll see how best I can clarify for you, guide you. Okay. So I just realized that I wasn't quite finished. I just need to spend a couple of moments showing you the answer template. So let's go there, over here. This is the answer template. It's already on your on my SACAP. It's typical structure, which is a title page to assessment 3. You put your group names over there. It's due the 14th of November. You by now know how to update the table of contents. You will write your assessment, and every now and then you would want to see what your table of contents looks like, and you'll update the entire table, and you'll do that. Okay, so it's quite in detail, as you can see here. So I've got a lot of headings in this template to guide you, and you may want to use different wording to what I have there, but this gives you perhaps a very sort of already designed way to structure your assessment. So it's question 1, A, B, and C, and then part 1, the explanation here of one of these measurements, and then the initiatives. Project management, part A, where you answer part AA, part AB, and part AC, which is about the deconstruction of work, the project management definition, and what the project manager needs to have control over in a business. And then question 2, part D, is project constraints and how they impact the work delivery of the manager. So that's, and then part E as well, project manager approach to dealing with different values. So those are the ones that I discussed earlier in part A. Question 3, project management, part B, the assumptions. If you have any, you will just open up with that and write briefly about that. Why projects fail, a very brief review, and then explain those 6 that you've chosen. And I've just used examples here. These are just examples. I'm not saying that you must choose these. You will look at that full list of, I think, around about 30 of them, and identify what might be your view of this particular project and what would be the most significant risks for you as the just appointed project manager. And then the planning of the project, the conversations that you have would be, maybe you would have 2 types of conversations during the planning phase, and maybe 3 during the project life. You may have 3 under planning and 4 under life. That just gives you an indication of perhaps how you could approach this question. And then a general approach to managing the risk. I think that might be a useful way to overall say what you will do, and then perhaps something specific about each of the risks that you would do to mitigate that risk in specifics. So maybe an overall approach to managing risk would be, as an example, to have excellent communication with all stakeholders. It might be an overall way to manage it. There may be other elements that you want to put in there, but it gives you an idea. And then specific approaches to managing a risk is if finances is a specific risk, you would keep close to the finance department and manage the budget quite closely. So those are just examples. I'm not saying those are the ones that you must use here, but specific approach to managing each risk will be, each of the risks will be tabled over there and discussed, and you'll have a conclusion for that particular part, which is the question 3, project management, part B. And then mitigating, question 4, the business ethics, corporate social responsibility, and corporate governance. There's a bit of an introduction there. And then you can see how it's been decomposed: SAPI's approach to business governance, business ethics, approach to CSR, how evaluation of how they integrated those 3 elements, and then an assessment of the effectiveness of SAPI's published code of ethics, and you'll write a short conclusion, and you'll have your references at the end. So this is just, as I do with my templates, there's some dummy text in here, just to give you an idea of the word count. And it's a rough estimate. For some elements here, you will have maybe less words, and for other more than what I've got here. As long as you're overall within that overall word count, and again, you've got 10% margin. So if you are 10% higher, like if it's 1,000 words and you've got 1,100 words, that's okay. If you're 10% under 900 words instead of 1,000, you're okay. But if you have less than 900 words or more than 1,100 words, then we need to apply the specified SACAP policies in that regard. Okay, now I think I've finished, so you will have this available already.